clever chord progression is one that sets up a listener's expectation and then breaks that expectation in an interesting way. One song that does this well is Along Came Betty by Benny Golson. To understand why, you need to know two things. One, the most important notes in a chord are the third and seventh. And two, the most commonly used chord progression in jazz is a 2-5-1. Let's deal with these in order. So first, the most important notes in a chord are the third and the seventh. This is because they determine the quality of the chord. That is, whether it's a major 7, minor 7, or dominant 7 chord. The root and the fifth stay the same across all these chord types, and therefore don't really contribute anything to the quality of the chord. This means that when we play a chord, we have to include the third and the seventh of the chord, but we are allowed to omit the root and the fifth. Playing only the third and the seventh still captures the sound and the essence of a chord and is called a shell voicing. It's the smallest number of notes you need to play a chord. So for example, this could be a shell voicing of a D minor 7 chord. The next point is that the most commonly used chord progression in jazz is a 2-5-1. So for example, a 2-5-1 in the key of C is a D minor 7 going to a G7 going to a C major 7. Now we can play a 2-5-1 using shell voicings. And because using a third or a seventh of a chord still captures the essence or the sound of a chord, this still sounds like a 2-5-1. It still sounds like we have resolved to a tonic chord via a perfect cadence. And this is where Along Came Betty is so clever. The chord progression starts on a B flat minor 7. And then goes to a B minor 7 to an E7. Now these last two chords are a 2-5 in A. So the next chord we are expecting to hear is an A major 7. But instead we go back to that B flat minor 7 again. And that B flat minor 7 is not the beginning of another 2-5, right? We don't then move to an E flat 7. Instead we sit on that B flat minor 7 chord for a bar, as if it was the tonic chord that we resolved to. But interestingly, the B flat minor 7 chord has the same third and seventh as A major 7, our expected tonic. So if we play this chord progression using shell voicings, it actually sounds like a regular 2-5-1, so our expectation is met. But if we include the root and the fifth, then it breaks our expectation because we don't quite get to that A major 7 chord that we were expecting. Instead, two of the notes are what we expected, and they are the two most important notes of the chord, but the other two unimportant notes throw us off. In this way, this chord progression both meets and breaks our expectation. It's kind of a pseudo 2-5-1, which I think is brilliant. This progression is then followed with a regular or a true 2-5-1 in A, where we actually resolve to the A major 7 tonic chord as we expect. This is followed by an A flat 7 going to a G major 7, which creates a nice chromatically descending progression, and which is just a 5-1 perfect cadence in the key of G, but we have tritone substituted the 5 chord. The next chord is an F sharp 7, so we continue moving down chromatically. Now again, assuming this is another tritone substituted dominant chord, then the next chord we expect to hear is an F major 7. But instead we get an F sharp minor 7, which again has the same 3rd and 7th as F major 7, the chord we are expecting. So it does the same little trick, replacing a 1 major 7 chord with a sharp 1 minor 7 chord. The next 4 bars are exactly the same as the first 4, with that clever little pseudo 2-5-1 progression followed by a true 2-5-1, but now in the key of F. And this F major 7 chord is a pivot chord. It's in 2 keys at once. It's both the 1 chord in the key of F at the end of that little 2-5-1, and the 4 chord in the key of C, which is where we modulate to next. And this section ends with a 5 of 2 secondary dominant followed by a 2-5 in C. So I really like this chord progression and think it's quite clever for a number of reasons. The first is that pseudo 2-5-1 followed by a true 2-5-1 progression, where that first fake tonic chord kind of feels resolved because of the movement of the 3rds and the 7ths, but also kind of doesn't. And then that chromatically descending progression that follows, which always sounds really smooth, really nice, and really jazzy.